So, this is it. The world is gone. Not the, oh no, the internet is down for 5 minutes kind of gone. I'm talking full collapse. Civilization wiped out by a deadly infection that turned people into something far worse than human. The few survivors left are scattered, starving, hiding, and probably questioning every life decision that brought them here. And somehow, we're one of them. Welcome to The Infected, a world where danger waits behind every tree, every shadow, and probably every suspicious bush that looks a little too quiet. Out here, infected mutants roam the wilderness, wild animals want to turn us into lunch, and honestly, even the weather feels personally offended by our existence. But giving up? Yeah, that's not happening. Our mission is simple: survive. Now, to survive in this lovely apocalypse vacation resort, we need the basics: tools, food, weapons, shelter, preferably in that order, unless a bear shows up first. Then priorities change very quickly. The first thing we need is a safe location to build a base, somewhere defensible, somewhere smart, somewhere that hopefully doesn't become the place we died immediately. And after a bit of exploring, I think I found the perfect spot. Right up here on this rocky cliff. Honestly, this place is beautiful. We've got height advantage, solid visibility, fewer angles for enemies to sneak up on us, and there's water nearby too, which is great because apparently humans need water to survive. Who knew? This cliff might actually become home. Well, assuming we don't accidentally fall off it carrying logs. All right, step 1, resources, and lots of them. We're gonna need sticks, stones, fiber, logs, basically anything that isn't nailed down. And if it is nailed down, give me 5 minutes and I'll probably figure something out. There's something strangely satisfying about starting from absolutely nothing. No giant fortress, no advanced weapons, just one survivor in the middle of a dead world holding a rock like it's legendary military technology. But every great survival story starts small. So, let's get to work. We'll craft our first tools, cut down trees, process logs into planks, and build the workstations we need to survive long term. Because right now, sleeping on the ground with infected creatures wandering around at night sounds like a terrible retirement plan. I want walls, I want defenses, and eventually, I want this place to look less like a disaster site and more like a real stronghold. Of course, building safely in this world is easier said than done. Every sound out here makes me nervous. A branch snaps in the forest, and suddenly I'm looking around like I owe money to the apocalypse. And nighttime? Yeah, nighttime is a completely different level of terrifying. But that's exactly what makes this exciting. Every tree we cut, every plank we place, every tool we craft, it all matters. One mistake out here could end everything. But if we play smart, this cliff could become the beginning of something huge. So grab the axe, try not to panic, and let's build our first shelter before the infected decide to welcome us personally.
Night is coming. And suddenly, this whole build a peaceful cliffside home idea feels a lot less relaxing. Everything changes after sunset in The Infected. The forest gets quieter, but somehow more dangerous at the same time. Every sound feels wrong. Every shadow looks alive. And I'm starting to realize that standing out here with zero weapons was maybe not the smartest survival strategy ever created. So, before things get ugly, we need better tools. First priority, a pickaxe. If we want to survive longer than one extremely unfortunate evening, we're going to need stone, lots of it. Stone for tools, weapons, construction, probably emotional support at this point too. So let's craft ourselves a proper pickaxe and start gathering materials before the infected decide to gather us. And while we're at it, 2 spears. Not 1, 2. Because if one spear misses, I'd really like a backup plan that isn't scream and run into the forest. Honestly, these spears don't exactly make me feel invincible. They look more like sharpened sticks held together by panic and desperation. But right now, that's premium military equipment. The good news is I managed to get a couple of walls built before dark. The bad news is it still barely qualifies as a shelter. At the moment, this place looks less like a fortress and more like a construction site that was abandoned during a zombie attack, which, to be fair, is technically accurate. Still, it's progress, and progress means survival. Now we need food. Because apparently, chopping trees, carrying logs up a cliff, and living in constant fear burns a surprising amount of calories. So it's time to hunt for some meat before starvation joins the list of things trying to kill us. Out here, even hunting feels dangerous. Every trip into the forest feels like gambling with your life. One second you're peacefully searching for animals, the next you're questioning why every bush sounds aggressive. But eventually, luck's on our side. A little meat, a small fire, fresh water nearby. Honestly, for about 30 seconds, this almost feels peaceful. Sitting by the fire in the middle of the apocalypse, cooking dinner while the darkness closes in around us. Of course, the infected are still out there somewhere, probably watching, probably judging my building skills. But tonight isn't about comfort. It's about surviving long enough to see morning. So we eat, drink, regain some strength, and get right back to work. Because these walls won't build themselves, and I'd really prefer not to spend the night getting chased around my unfinished house with 2 wooden spears and bad decisions. One plank at a time, this shelter is starting to become a home. Or at least a place slightly harder to die in.
You hear that? Yeah, something's moving out there. At first I thought it was just the wind. Maybe a rabbit, maybe my brain finally collapsing from exhaustion. But no, this thing was stomping through the forest like it owned the place. And then I saw it. A boar. Our very first real enemy in The Infected. Now listen, in normal life, seeing a wild boar is already terrifying enough. Those things are basically angry tanks with fur. But out here, in the middle of the apocalypse, with 2 homemade spears and the survival instincts of a confused raccoon, this suddenly became a very serious situation. The boar spots me. I freeze. The boar freezes. For one beautiful second, we both silently agree that maybe violence isn't necessary today. And then it charges directly at me like I insulted its entire bloodline. Okay, great. Fantastic. Panic mode activated. I throw the first spear. Somehow it actually lands. The boar keeps coming. I grab the second spear while backing up like my life depends on it. Because honestly, it does. Another hit. The boar stumbles. One more attack. And just like that, yeah, no more boar. Our first real fight, and we survived. Not gonna lie, that felt incredible. Terrifying, life-threatening, emotionally damaging, but incredible. Out here, every victory matters. Every fight you survive reminds you that maybe, just maybe, we actually have a chance in this world. Of course, there's no time to celebrate for long. The shelter still isn't finished, resources are running low, and my character is so exhausted, he's about 2 minutes away from passing out face first into the campfire. So before we continue construction, we need one very important thing. A bed. Not a luxury bed, not memory foam. At this point, I'd happily sleep on a pile of leaves if it means not collapsing unconscious in the middle of the forest. Honestly, after everything today, even a badly built survival bed sounds like a five-star hotel. So we gather the last materials, place down our first real sleeping spot, and finally prepare to rest. And for the first time since arriving here, this place almost feels safe. Almost. Fire crackles outside, the night grows darker. Somewhere in the distance, creatures are still moving through the forest. The infected are out there, waiting. But tonight, we survived. We fought. We built. And tomorrow, we keep going.
Morning finally arrives, and honestly, I've never been so happy to see sunlight in my life. The night is over. No screaming creatures, no surprise attacks, no angry boars trying to turn me into forest decoration. Just a calm, beautiful morning in the world of the infected. For the first time since we started this survival journey, things almost feel peaceful. The sun's shining, the lake looks incredible, and our little cliffside shelter is slowly starting to resemble an actual base instead of a pile of emergency panic construction. Of course, peace never lasts long out here, because now we've reached the point where survival gets serious. It's time to upgrade. First problem, storage. Right now, all of our resources are scattered everywhere like I survived a tornado inside a hardware store. Logs over here, sticks over there, rocks somehow in places I don't even remember putting them. So today, we build storage chests. And honestly, these might be the most important things we've crafted so far. Because once you start organizing resources, that's when a survival camp starts becoming a real operation. Now we can actually store materials properly, move supplies around easier, and stop throwing random items on the floor like exhausted cave people. But storage alone won't keep us alive. We need iron. And getting iron means one thing: stone. A ridiculous amount of stone. So it's time to grab the pickaxe and start mining like our survival depends on it. Because it absolutely does. Every rock we break brings us one step closer to stronger tools, better weapons, advanced crafting, and real defenses. Wood helped us survive the beginning, but iron is how we build a future. Which means our next big project is the forge. Actually, multiple forges. Because if we're going to survive long term, we need production. Iron fragments, metal components, iron ingots, all the things that separate a struggling survivor from someone actually building a fortress. And honestly, once the fires in these furnaces start glowing, the whole base changes. Suddenly, this tiny shelter feels alive, like we're rebuilding civilization one iron bar at a time. There's something satisfying about it. The sound of mining, the heat from the forge, stacks of resources finally coming together. Sure, the infected still roam the wilderness outside our walls. The world is still dangerous, and at any moment something horrible could probably sprint out of the forest toward us. But today feels different. Today feels productive. Today feels hopeful. And that might actually be the most dangerous thing of all, because the second you start feeling comfortable in this world, it usually finds a new way to scare you.
By the time evening started creeping across the valley, I realized something important. I had spent the entire day working non-stop, and somehow, for the first time since arriving in the infected, it actually felt like real progress. No panic, no desperate scrambling for survival, just pure work. Mining stone, smelting ore, feeding furnaces, crafting iron fragments and iron ingots for hours, while smoke rolled across the cliffside like we were rebuilding civilization from scratch. And honestly, it felt good. There's something weirdly satisfying about watching raw materials slowly turn into something useful. The fires burning through the day, metal heating inside the forge, stacks of iron piling up beside the shelter. This little base is evolving, slowly, painfully, but definitely evolving. And after an entire day of grinding resources, I finally had enough iron ingots for something huge, the anvil. Now this changes everything. The moment that anvil drops into place, survival stops feeling temporary. Suddenly, we're not just hiding from the apocalypse anymore, we're engineering our way through it. Because the anvil unlocks the things we desperately need. Nails, screws, metal components, tiny little pieces of iron that somehow become the backbone of every advanced tool, machine, and structure we'll ever build. Honestly, it's kind of funny. Human civilization collapses, billions gone, the world consumed by infection, and somehow I still end up spending my evening crafting screws. Apocalypse or not, hardware stores always win. But these materials matter. Without nails and screws, we can't progress. No advanced stations, no proper defenses, no future. So we get to work immediately. Iron goes in, sparks fly, and slowly, piece by piece, our first real supply of crafted materials starts coming together. Next step, the workbench. Now this is important, because with the workbench, we unlock something incredibly valuable. Rope. Simple rope made from plant fiber, but out here, rope is survival. Rope means construction. Rope means traps. Rope means defensive structures that might actually stop something from tearing through our camp in the middle of the night. And right now, that sounds extremely useful for my mental health. So we craft fibers into ropes, gather more sticks and logs, and finally begin building our first true line of defense, spike barriers. Beautiful, sharp, terrifying spike barriers. There's honestly something comforting about surrounding your home with giant wooden spikes. It sends a very clear message to the infected. Please attack someone else. One by one, the defensive stakes begin taking shape around the cliffside, and suddenly the base feels different again, safer, stronger, more permanent. Of course, deep down, I know these defenses won't stop everything forever. The infected out there are relentless. Every night they get closer. Every day the wilderness feels more hostile, and eventually something bigger is going to find us. But tonight they won't walk straight into our shelter anymore. Tonight, there are walls, there are spikes, there's protection. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I might actually be able to sleep without waking up in pure terror every 5 minutes. Although, knowing this world, the second I say that out loud, something horrible is probably already sprinting toward the base through the forest right now. Morning arrives, and honestly, I actually slept pretty well. Which is surprising, considering we're living in a world destroyed by infection, surrounded by monsters, sleeping behind sharpened sticks on the edge of a cliff. I'd say the night was a complete success. The new defenses held up. Nobody tried to eat us, and for the first time in days, I woke up feeling rested instead of emotionally traumatized. That alone feels like an achievement. But after hauling logs, rocks, ore, and half the forest up this mountain with my bare hands for days straight, I've realized something very important. I am tired of manual labor. Seriously, my survivor has carried so many stones at this point that his spine probably sounds like a maraca every time he walks. So today, we change our lives forever. Today, we build technology. Well, apocalypse technology, a cart. And honestly, this might be the greatest invention humanity has ever created. Forget smartphones, forget rockets, forget modern civilization. None of those people ever had to carry 12 logs uphill while being hunted by infected creatures. This cart, this is innovation. Once we finish building it, everything becomes easier. We can transport chests, logs, stones, supplies, food, basically our entire survival operation without making 27 exhausting trips back and forth across the base. And the difference is immediate. Suddenly, I feel organized, efficient, powerful, like some kind of post-apocalyptic delivery company. The only thing missing is a logo and extremely overpriced shipping fees. Of course, one improvement always leads to another, because now that we can move heavier materials around easier, it's time to solve one of our biggest ongoing problems: stone management. We use stone for everything: tools, furnaces, crafting stations, upgrades, and somehow, no matter how much we gather, it disappears instantly like the base is secretly eating rocks when I'm not looking. So we build a dedicated storage crate specifically for transporting stone. And honestly, this changes the workflow completely. Now, instead of carrying a few rocks at a time like some exhausted cave survivor, we can load huge amounts into the cart and move materials directly between crafting stations and furnaces. Efficiency. Beautiful, beautiful efficiency. There's something satisfying about watching the base slowly become more advanced. Every new station, every storage system, every crafted tool makes this place feel less like temporary survival and more like the beginning of a real settlement, a functioning system, a home. Well, a home surrounded by deadly spikes and constant existential danger, but still. The best part is that all the hard work from the last few days is finally paying off. The furnaces are running, resources are organized, defenses are holding, and now transportation is easier than ever. We're no longer barely surviving, we're adapting. And that's dangerous, because the stronger we get, the deeper we go into this world, the more noise we make, the more attention we attract. Somewhere out there, beyond the trees, something is probably already noticing the smoke from our furnaces, the sounds of construction, the signs that someone is still alive up here on the cliff. But that's a problem for later. Right now, I'm just enjoying the fact that I no longer have to carry 50 kilograms of stone in my backpack like a confused mountain goat. Something feels wrong today. You know that feeling when the forest gets a little too quiet? Yeah, that feeling. The wind slows down, the sounds disappear, and suddenly your survival instincts start screaming at you like an unpaid alarm system. And then I see them. Movement in the distance, the infected. Looks like our little cliffside paradise in the infected has finally attracted some unwanted attention. Honestly, I knew this moment was coming. You don't build furnaces, walls, spikes, and an entire survival operation without eventually getting noticed. Smoke, the noise, the construction, we may as well have hung up a giant sign saying, "Fresh survivor located here." Well, if they want the base, they're gonna have to earn it. So it's time to prepare. Spear in hand, heart rate increasing rapidly, confidence level questionable. I take position behind the defenses, staring down the hill while the infected slowly move closer through the trees. And suddenly every spike wall we build feels a whole lot more important. This is the real test. Did all that work actually matter? Or did I just spend days building decorative toothpicks? The infected get closer, closer, and then they charge. Immediately, the spike barriers go to work. The infected slam directly into the defenses, getting stuck, taking damage, stumbling over each other in complete chaos. And honestly, it's beautiful. The defenses hold perfectly. For the first time since this survival journey started, we are not the ones running in panic. The base is fighting back. The walls, the spikes, all those hours of gathering resources and crafting materials, it all pays off right here. Of course, I'm still helping with the spear because I'd rather not trust my entire future to sharpened logs alone. One infected drops, then another, and just like that, silence. We survived our first zombie attack. Not barely survived, not escaped by luck. We defended the base. That changes everything. Because now we know the shelter works, the defenses work, the strategy works, and suddenly this cliff no longer feels like a temporary hideout. It feels like a fortress. Now comes the best part, loot. Because if the apocalypse teaches you anything, it's that every dangerous fight is immediately followed by aggressively checking pockets for useful items. So let's see what our very unfriendly visitors brought us. Resources, materials, maybe something valuable. Every piece of loot matters out here. Every item pushes us further forward. And honestly, after surviving that attack, I think we earned it. Still, something tells me this was only the beginning, because if a few infected found us this easily, what happens when something worse shows up?